Hey everyone, it's your buddy, it's your pal, Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. Today I'm re-reviewing the Aggressor Assault Fighters from Star Wars Armada. The first video I put out involving IG-88B. As you know, recently he got a clarification that drastically changed what we thought was the interpretation for his card. So reshooting the video again to make sure I'm giving all the information I can correctly about how the squadron works, now that we do have that clarification from FFG. So let's dive right into the Imperial Squadron, the Aggressor Assault Fighter. So the generic Aggressor Assault Fighter, there's also an IG-88 and an IG-88B. What's the difference? We'll get into that. The generic is able to, if you look there, you'll see there's these four boxes going from left to right. The yellow box is how far the distance the squadron can travel. It can move within distance 1 to 3. The next one there in that brown box is how much hull points it has. It has 5 hull points. The next one is its anti-squadron armament, which has 4 blue die. And that red box is its anti-ship armament of 1 black die. This squadron has the squadron keywords of Counter 1 and Rogue. With Counter 1 being if this squadron is attacked, you can counter back with 1 blue die, even if that squadron was destroyed. And Rogue allows the squadron to move and attack in the squadron phase rather than move or attack that most other fighters commonly have. And the squadron can still be activated by a squadron command, but then you're kind of negating those extra points you're spending, for having Rogue. But there's always benefits to activating, to not activating. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to cover the squadron. So the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the icon for the squadron. Opposite of that, you're going to see its point cost of 16 points. And for 16 points, you kind of wonder why not just take a TIE Interceptor for 11 points. It accomplishes not quite the same role, but it's a bit cheaper, and it's still throwing, that ton of firepower. And it's pretty much just, you want an interceptor that you don't have to command. It just also can't travel as fast. It has a bit more hull points. So there's pros and cons to having both. But definitely the aggressors aren't as popular as their counterparts like the YT 2400s. But I'm not going to go too much into that detail. All right. So the aggressor here, again, it can travel distance 1, 2, 3. You got the black is 1, red is 2, 3, 4, 5. So if there's, for example, an X-Wing sitting off over here, and you can travel distance 1, 2, and 3, now you're at distance 1 to attack. If you're rogue or being commanded, you can throw the 4 blue die. There we are. Oh, I just realized I think I have my OBS window not set in the middle. There we go. I forgot I was doing a different video that required me to move my box. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And we see there that I roll 2 hits, an accuracy, and a crit. Doesn't have any capability reroll, so that X-Wing will take 2 damage. And when the aggressor is attacking a ship, it's not bomber, so it throws a black die, though, so it has a 75% chance of just dealing, 1 damage. And yeah, it's got the 5 hull points. It has counter 1, rogue. Not much else to go over about the aggressor. So let's dive right into IG-88. And some people have been wondering, what is the difference between IG-88 and IG-88B? Can you bring both? And the answer to that question is yes. Because if you look at IG-88, you'll see that he's flying the ship underneath his name, the IG-2000, and IG-88B is flying the IG-2000B. They are 2 separate ships, so they're not restricted to flying the same, that's why you can bring both, is because they're each flying their own ship, they're each their own unique squadron. This is different compared to something like the Millennium Falcon or the Slave One, which the Millennium Falcon you can take either Han Solo or Lando Calrissian, and the Slave One you can take either Boba Fett or Hondo Anaka. Those specifically, even though they're a unique person piloting the ship name is the same. You can only ever have like the one ship. There is only the one Millennium Falcon and the one Slave One. But these guys don't have that restriction, because the IG-88 units in Star Wars, there's just thousands of them. There's just, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of them. There's so many different types and varieties. They're just mass-produced droids. All right, so let's dive right into IG-88. So he came out in the original Rogues and Villains pack. So IG-88 is unique. You see the dot bullet point there in front of his name. He goes a whopping speed 5, 5 hull, 4 blue anti-squadron die, and 1 black anti-ship die. He still has the counter and rogue ability from the other aggressors, except his counter is counter 2, so when he's attacked, counters with 2 blue die. And his keyword, his card word, excuse me, hiccuping, his card effect is you ignore the escort and counter keywords on enemy squadrons. What does this mean? So, for example, we're going to throw Char out here. We're going to throw in Biggs out here. Perfect. Okay. So typically, when a squadron is engaged with both an escort squadron and a non-escort squadron, you have to shoot the escort squadron. You can't get around it if you're engaged. Now, if there's something in the way like obstruction, like in this example, even though he's technically at distance 1 of Biggs, when you draw a line of sight, it's obstructed, meaning you're not engaged. You could still shoot Biggs if you want to, but it also means you're not prevented otherwise from shooting other targets. Okay, but so in this case, he is engaged with both Biggs and Char, but his special ability is I can ignore escort. So it doesn't matter I'm at distance 1 of that escort. I can still shoot Char Bay if I want to. So I blast away at her with 4 blue die, and hey, I deal at least 1 damage to her. Now, typically, Shara is very dangerous to attack because she has counter 3, and her hits and critical symbols each count as a damage. So, I mean, I've seen Shara wipe out TIE Fighter, 6 TIE Fighters in an alpha activation, the generics, like, no problem. But in this case, again, he's also ignoring counter. So, Shara doesn't get a chance to counter. Shara can't attack IG-88 back. Okay. So that is how IG-88 works. He's essentially a precision tool. He's like a surgeon's knife. You want to just stab the one squadron you really, really hate, like Jan Ors, for example. He's great for smacking her around because usually she's protected by a bunch of escort. Or again, using him against targets like Chara Bay or other counter targets. Why you don't see him too much, though, is that he only gets a single defense token, which is a scatter defense token, and when X-Wings and TIE Interceptors are all throwing 4 or more blue die, it's very easily locked down, and he's very easy to pick off and destroy. So that's why you haven't seen too much him in play, just because you can get other cheaper squadrons to essentially accomplish the same effect. Not that you don't see him, it's just not so often, and you really have to be very careful with him. He does not like getting flacked. Neither of these IG-88 units like getting flacked, because again, then you're still taking damage because you don't want to scatter like a single damage. But anyway, that's how IG-88 works. Easy peasy. I don't think I missed anything from that. One thing I do want to go over is, for example, if we'll say this X-Wing here is a TIE Advance, and there's Valen Rudor. So what happens if IG-88 engages this TIE Advanced and Valen Rudor? Can he shoot Valen Rudor? No, because Valen Rudor's card effect is if you're engaged with any other enemy squadron, you cannot shoot Valen Rudor. Period. End of story. So even though he can ignore escort, he still can't shoot Valen Rudor because his card effect pretty much makes everybody a hard escort for him. All right. Let's get into IG-88B, and this is the new one from the Rebellion in the Rim expansion. So IG-88B, again, is unique. Can we bring one of him? He flies the IG-2000B. Still within distance 5 movement, 5 hull. His anti-squadron armament, though, is 2 blue die, 2 black die, which is, I love that combo because it means, you get a lot of reliable damage. You're not potentially as effective as getting accuracies to smack around scatter aces, but the fact that you're still able to throw out some really consistent, reliable damage is not to be scoffed at, especially when fighting rebels. Also, again, he has that 1 black die for anti-ship. Again, he's got counter 1 in rogue, so not anything terribly too different about him. So IG-88B, this was the one we got the clarification on. I'm going to read his card effect, and then we'll dive in. So at the start of the squadron phase, you may toggle your activation slider to the activated side. If you do, you may perform an anti-squadron attack against each enemy squadron at distance 1. Treat these attacks as obstructed. So originally how we thought this card worked is it didn't matter how many enemy squadrons were around him, including squadrons with escort. You could shoot every single enemy squadron at distance 1. FFG has just released a clarification, though, that has changed that. They're specifically saying, actually, no, you don't ignore escort. And here's the wording. When resolving IG-88B's ability, IG-88B can perform one attack against each enemy squadron at distance 1. Okay, so we're on the same page so far. While IG-88B is engaged with one or more escort squadrons, IG-88B must declare them as targets first and can attack each escort squadron once. Then, if one or more escort squadrons remain engaged, IG-88B must stop performing attacks. Another interpretation we thought was that even though there's only 4 squadrons, you could perform, like 3 attacks against Biggs and 1 attack against the X-Wing. Again, they've completely nixed that. So how IG-88B works then, so after the ship phase, when you get to the start of the squadron phase, if you're first or second player, you resolve that timing in order, of course, for anyone's abilities. You can say, you know what, I'm engaged with these 4 enemy squadrons. I want to use IG-88B's ability. So you toggle his ability. Now, as it says there, these attacks are treated as obstructed. So even though there's no obstacles present or anything like that, it just means you lose a die when you're making each attack. So instead of throwing your 2 blue, 2 black, you need to choose which die you want to drop. Like, for example, if I'm shooting a scatter ace, probably want to drop a black die so you have that better chance of accuracy. If I'm shooting brace aces, want to drop a blue, higher chance of damage from the black. Alright, so the first thing you have to do is see who's at distance 1. I have four squadrons at distance 1, but I'm engaged with Biggs and an X-Wing. So I have to shoot them first. So let's start with Biggs. I'll throw 1 blue and 2 black. And I did 2 damage. So he's going to brace that, and he's actually going to use his effect to move that 1 damage to the other X-Wing. Or, no, he's actually going to take that 1 damage, we'll say. And then, since I attacked him, I can't attack him again. Now I can move on to the next escort, which is this generic X-Wing. Again, throw the 1 blue, 2 black. I only deal 1 damage. And for example, if this X-Wing had taken 2 damage, I probably would have used Biggs' ability to move a damage from the X-Wing to Biggs, because Biggs will last, the Biggs will last longer than the X-Wing will against IG-88. So, but that X-Wing is just going to take 1 damage. Now you check, am I still engaged with escort? Yes, I cannot attack Shara. I cannot attack Dutch. I can't attack anything else. If there's more escort, I can shoot other squadrons of escort. Again, just once only. But now it's stopped, and I can't do anything else. Now, the flip side to that is, escort essentially is a super hard counter to IG-88B. Like, if there's 2 or more escort, just don't ever count on your IG-88B ever getting his Death Blossom spinning rotation, the Last Starfighter reference, to happen. And that's sad, because I really liked trying to position and get that to go off, because it was already kind of difficult to do it. Now it's just negated by escort, which Rebels always have escort. Some Imperials bring it, but even then it's just hard to do. So now let's go back to, for example, let's say that Biggs was on 1 whole point, and this X-Wing was on 1 whole point. And then you do your Death Blossom. So if you're able, for example, throw the 1 blue, 2 black, and that, that kills Biggs, and then you attack the next X-Wing. And there you go, that kills the X-Wing. So now when you do your check, I've attacked all the escort that's at distance 1. Now there is no longer any escort. Can I continue? Yes, because now the escort's gone. There's no more escort nearby. Now if I want to attack Dutch Vander and Shara Bay, now I absolutely can. So here's the attack on Dutch. So he takes, the 1 after he braces. And then here's the attack on Shara. Throw the 2 blue. And that she's going to scatter. But then again, she's going to, she'll counter 3 on IG-88B. So that is how his ability works. Now, something I do want to point out, though. Back up and get the health back on these guys for my other examples if I need them. Oops. What happens, though, if you do have hard obstruction? For example, let's say that everyone's kind of crowded around this obstacle here, and IG-88B is sitting in the middle of that obstacle. In this situation, because again, when you draw a line of sight, it's obstructed, and if it's a hard obstruction like this obstacle, not the obstructed attack as it says on the card there, it means they're not engaged, which means escort doesn't work, because again, escort only works when you are engaged. So in this situation, IG-88B can actually attack all the squadrons because, again, he's not engaged with the escort because his line of sight is obstructed to all those targets anyway. So in this situation, he could Death Blossom every single squadron. Or again, if you want to pick and choose, like for example, you could attack both X-Wings and Dutch, but if you didn't want to attack Shara Bay, you don't have to attack Shara Bay. You can always declare, you know what, even though I can attack this target, I'm choosing not to. And again, to use that reference from before about what about Valen Rudor, again, this is still an attack. Are you in this situation? Let's see, what does it say here? If you're not engaged. So if we had used the previous example where the obstacle isn't there, you couldn't shoot Valen Rudor because you're engaged with other squadrons. But again, with this situation, since he is completely obstructed, you could shoot Valen Rudor because, again, you're not engaged, quote unquote, with anybody else. So that's how you can also negate his ability. What about the timing with Exogorth? So what happens first? Again, if you're first player, you can decide to have IG-88B go off before Exogorths do because it is firmly a second player's timing to choose. So IG-88B can go off before the Exogorths do as first player. If you're second player, you can choose if you want to do Exogorths first or IG-88B first. Because that's, again, your timing window. You can decide, I want to do Exogorth, or if I want to do IG-88B. Alright. I think I covered everything. I'm going to double check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. Alright, so that is the Aggressor Assault Fighters. That's IG-88. That's IG-88B. Of course, if you feel like I missed anything, or if you have any questions, leave a comment, point it out. I'll make sure I'm answering them. You guys are fantastic, and hey, I'll catch you guys all next time.